Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Yes, and these are the ones that I really enjoy doing a ton. It is, for me, it feels better than covering the news, but the news is something we have to cover, and we feel we have to, and we want to kind of give you our spin on it.
We do, and we want to give it to you like in a spiritual sense because we're always bombarded with tons of information, and how do you process it? What do you do with it? But then sometimes you run across something like this, and this stuff is just so cool.
Yeah, actually, I just did this whole video just because we looked at this. Yep. And then it got me thinking about so many things to share and why both of us are so deep into Vedanta and the Sanatana Dharma, just because it's so rich. And I feel absolutely convinced, and the guides have said, yes, you're right, that it was snuffed out. At least many of the people were snuffed out. This culture, even though we have remnants of it today, was really decimated by the beings that came here, the Ijiji, the Anunnaki, who are basically serving the Draco. And over time, this was the wars of the gods at first. There was an advanced civilization here on this planet in which many different non-terrestrial beings were coming and going on a regular basis, living basically, and for the most part, peace, before this invasion came by those that are still here in control.
Right. And, the beings in the Golden Age, they really had a sense of oneness and a sense of understanding and a sense of working with the planet, on the planet's terms, life on life's terms. They worked like that, and it was just beautiful. And they didn't do anything to harm. They made artwork. They used what was already here on the planet. They didn't muck it up.
So this is the question, how did they do it? Truly unparalleled skill. Interconnected chain rings made it from a single piece of stone without any joint. Is it possible to decipher the technology? This architectural marvel is at the Varadhajara Perumal Temple, and this is in actually Tennessee. Isn't that cool?
And what really kind of irritates me is when you go back and you look in basic school books, they'll tell you, all of this was done with a chisel and hammer.
Well, yeah, talk about chisels and hammer. We have a lot we want to show you guys, and this is another marvel. Now, this is actually all created from one block of stone. It's excavated down into the earth, and with beautiful, beautiful artistry, as we'll show you a couple other amazing details out of one big, massive block of stone. Isn't this incredible?
And there's no do-overs. There's no retakes. This is stone.
Yeah, I mean, if you do a oops, I don't know. What are you going to do? This is the Kailasa Temple in India, the world's largest structure carved from a single piece of rock. And, it's one of the world's greatest monuments, often overlooked or at least overshadowed by things like the pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, all the usual, the Mexican Pyramid of the Sun, or Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. But it's definitely one amazing architectural achievement. Isn't that just like jaw-dropping?
It's stunning, and this should be more widespread information. I'm not sure how old I was when I learned about these things, but it was well out of school. I mean, way, way, way out of any kind of schooling.
So this is also known as the Kailasa Temple, which is designed to resemble Mount Kailash, which is the home of the Hindu deity Shiva. Not only is it unique because of its monolithic structure, the temple also features elaborate architectural and scriptural influences. Just spectacular. Kailasa Temple is one of 34 cave temples and monasteries that form the Ellora Caves. Truth is, nobody really understands how they built it. They say that it was built between the 5th and 10th centuries AD, but is it actually older? You know, that's one of the things to think about. You know, they attribute the same things with the pyramids. They say, oh, they're built not too long ago during certain reigns of certain kings. Well, but then there's others that have said, no, not at all. And you know, Cindy's gotten that they were brought in the Golden Age.
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, but it's really difficult to date stone. I mean, there's no real popular way to date this.
And you can see the people walking around, so this is a massive structure.
Yeah.
It's pretty dang amazing, really. Now, Mohenjo-Daro is another one that is just incredible. And the whole Indus Valley culture, the Harappan civilization, I believe completely, and we've gotten from the guides too, there has been a concerted effort to date this as newer than the Sumerian culture, which is not. It's much more ancient. And there's some fascinating facts, which we're going to touch on, that show this civilization was completely different than the system we have upon the planet. This civilization is one to emulate, not the one that we got from the Sumerians. And so this was in the late 1820s that a British explorer came across some mysterious ruins, the first evidence of this lost city of Harappa. 30 years later, 1856, railway engineers found more bricks, began carting off before continuing railway construction. And then in the 20s, archaeologists finally began to excavate and uncover the sites of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. The long-forgotten Indus Valley civilization had at last been discovered. It had been, well, forgotten because it was obliterated. This is going back to the wars of the gods that we've talked about. And the victors write the history, and the victors come out of the Sumerian tradition. Everything we have, we're inheriting from the Sumerians, which means we've inherited it from the Gigi Anunnaki, which is the draconian system of things. You know, and it's sad because if we go into the ancient texts that make up the Sanatha Dharma, which means eternal wisdom, eternal truth, we discover that the Vedic deities were very benevolent. They're like humans in a sense that they have their unique, distinct personalities, but everything does. Even dogs, which obviously Sassy and Zeke, you know, they're both nice and sweet, but they're different. They're a unique personality. Same thing with any donkey you want to encounter. You know, over there in Nevada, we encountered a ton of donkeys, and they're all unique.
They are super unique. Some of them will put their head in your car window and take whatever you're eating, and then others are really super afraid of you. And, you know, some are just adorable, and they walk up to the gas station and let people feed them. But they're all very, very different.
So this civilization, I think, was what we had in ages past. And thousands of years ago, the Indus Valley civilization was larger than the ancient civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. We always hear about, you know, the Fertile Crescent, the Sumerian civilization, and Egypt too. But this civilization was bigger than both of them combined. Many of its sprawling cities were located on the banks of rivers that still flow through Pakistan and India today. And there's some mind-boggling facts. One of them, too, is the whole wars that we see portrayed in these great epics, like the Mahabharata, from which the central part, the Bhagavad Gita, tells the story of a famous battle and gives us such deep insight into humans, God source, consciousness, everything, the multiverse. And that battle, you know, literally, it spanned a great area. And in fact, some of what was the Soviet Union is some of the locations where these battles took place, way outside of India. So this ancient culture was much bigger than present day India, is the point being. It's the oldest in the world. So recently now, scientists have found evidence that this civilization's bare minimum 8,000 years old, not 5,500 years that they were pushing. So it's older than the Egyptian and Mesopotamian civilizations. It's the oldest in the world that we know of as far as a great civilization. Now, could be some buried in other places that we haven't discovered yet. So they had a great bath, and it actually translates, Mohenjo-Daro literally translates to Hill of the Dead or Mound of the Dead. The great bath, a watertight pool perched on top of a mound of dirt, is enclosed within walls of baked bricks. This bathing pool, and they have another one as well, suggests that they really valued cleanliness. They have an undeciphered script. Now we know the oldest script that we know of is Indo-European. That Indo is Indus. And when we look to Sanskrit, there's really nothing older than that we know in its completeness. So, is this perhaps one of the root scripts, root origins of Sanskrit, origins of that Indo-European tradition? They had great granaries, the world's earliest known dockyard, and then they have some impressive altars as well. They had a game like chess. The town planning was amazing as well, elaborate drainage system. These were very skilled people, skilled planners. They worked together well. Urban life in which it appeared that there was not a great disparity of wealth. What? Not a great disparity of wealth? Well, see, the system came in with the Sumerians. Again, this is a Sumerian system that we're in. The Roman system, the system that goes all the way down through all these different empires, the British Empire, the American Empire, and then now the CCP Empire to come, right? Mm-hmm. That's all coming out of Sumeria. Again, this is all coming from the Anunnaki Gigi and their way. This city's prosperity and stature are evident in the artifacts like beads, jewelry, and pottery recovered from almost every house, as well as the baked brick city structures themselves. Not everybody was rich, but the poor got enough to eat. The city lacked ostentatious buildings like palaces and no temples. Interesting. Again, they didn't need that type of structure. They lived a spiritual life. So there was no need to go to a temple or pay, tithes 10% to the church. Mm-hmm. We see how profitable that's been for the Vatican.
Yeah, somebody figured that one out.
And the lack of many weapons shows that these people had few enemies and they lived in peace. There was no weaponry rooms. There was no massive armories. There was no apparent leadership.
And
no Senate,
that's exciting.
Emperor.
Yeah, I love that. I know we can get back there. It's going to take a lot of people with a lot of, similar intention, but we can get back there. And this is just a beautiful way to live. It feels right.
It does. They had a love of fashion, some intriguing figurines. They traded without money. There was no monetary system. These guys were doing everything right.
Yes.
Not the Sumerians, who now, here at the pinnacle of Sumerian civilization in this century, where basically we're heading to a complete slavery system where it's just the ultra-rich elites, the billionaire class controlling everything. This is what was on Earth before they came here and did this to the beings that were already here.
It really saddens me that it saddens me, but then again, it inspires me because I know when Mother Nature is thrown off of her course, when she's knocked off of her course, nature always rebounds and it comes back to the way it was intended. And I feel like we are on our way back to our blueprint, but we're going to have to work for it.
Yep. Yeah. So, again, no armories, no apparent kingship, leadership, no apparent like high upper class with this big gap. And they traded. So there were no bankers.
Right.
Basically living vampiric lives off of others. Mm-hmm. And we have the seal here of Pashupati Mahadev, which is thought to be basically the predecessor to the one that became known as Shiva. And so this is the oldest known deity representation that we have. And they also were definitely followers of the mother goddess and the divine feminine, which is also partly probably why they actually were more peaceable.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Did things a little more fairly and didn't have, that testosterone-driven, aggressive aspect to them.
Right. They have more of the motherly, here, let me fix it or let me help you. Some people say that being a people pleaser is a bad thing, but I think it's just an aspect of the divine feminine. They want to make sure everybody's okay and everybody's taken care of. And if everybody acts like that, then it's a win-win.
They had some unusual burials, including people being buried with their dogs right next to them, which was interesting. Now, the mysterious massacre of Mohenjo-Daro is interesting as well. And the ultimate decline and decay. What happened to them? Well, you know what? There's actually evidence, as we'll read here. Are the Indian remains of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, their sudden abandonment and the apparent discovery of an ancient site with a layer of radioactive ash, the best available evidence for the possibility that our ancient ancestors possessed a highly advanced technology, including atomic warfare? Well, they weren't the ones using it. It wasn't the Harappans. It wasn't the people of Mohenjo-Daro. It was the people, the beings, the Gigi, Anunnaki, and the humans that served them that actually did this. And so, again, this is where we get those references in the Mahabharata to the Brahmastra, the weapon that shines like 10,000 suns, because it's so damaging that I believe in the text it actually talks about 1 billion people being wiped out, when supposedly the world didn't have anywhere near that many people on it back in those days. But these cycles repeat each other, and the same psychopathic beings, or not necessarily the exact same ones, but they're antecedents, I guess you would say, the ones that came after. Mm-hmm. Are continuing in their tradition, but thankfully the Galactics have said they will not let this happen again. But it did happen in the past, and as we've shared, I've gotten visions of that in Nevada and in Arizona, those two states especially. Cindy's felt it too. We felt that sudden death from the sky, where it's just something's coming, flash, everything's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really sad. You look in parts of Nevada and surrounding states, and just there's this scarring about it. There's this irreparable damaged look to it, like you'll never see the soil come back to really grow a lot of fertile plants ever again. It's sad.
So, a lot of times, many times, I've said that I think it would be a wonderful thing if we could all study scriptures from other traditions as well. Because when we look to the Abrahamic traditions, where do they come from? Well, where was Abraham from? Ur of the Chaldees. Where's that? Sumeria. Mm-hmm. It's Sumeria and Acadia. It's the ones that conquered everything else. And when we look to the Bible and we start looking at, look at Joshua and Jericho. And somebody had made a comment on one video saying, it's not thou shalt not kill, it's that thou shalt not commit a murder, as far as one of the 10 Commandments. Of course, we go to the Hammurabic Code, which precedes that again. And where's that? Again, we're talking about the same place. We're talking about the mindset and the people and the system and the structure of the beings that have conquered this planet. And so the Abrahamic traditions come out of their zone, comes out of their area. And, I know that, well, most of the people that are watching this, we were brought up in an Abrahamic tradition. Yeah, we could even see that so much of it is tainted and twisted. Are there universal truths? Yes, there are. There's some basic instructions there too that are very useful. But again, even, what does the Bible even say? It says, God created humans, put them in a garden to take care of it, right? And the Anunnaki tales say that they created humans to be a slave race. But humans were already here. And they didn't necessarily do upgrades, they downgraded. They took away our kundalini. They took away the open pineal gland. This is why you're fed what you're fed, the GMO foods, as well as many things that are far worse nowadays, including the fluoridated water, and all the things that are designed to keep lifespans limited.
Right, and it keeps you from asking questions, and it keeps you from understanding the spiritual aspects that are around us all the time.
Yes, so, look to the wisdom in other traditions too. Because again, we have to look at all and then sort. Weigh with both what feels good intellectually and what feels good with the heart, and take what is useful. And as Buddha said, discard the rest. So this is a quote: "When I read the Upanishads, which are part of Vedanta, I found a profundity of worldview that made my Christianity seem like third grade." And, it's like I wouldn't have said it in such a way, but I'm just reading somebody's quote, but I can't say I disagree. It's so deep. It's so expansive. It's asking the big, big questions. Not like, how do I better worship and serve God, but what is reality? What am I? What are you? Are we living in a matrix? How does this work? Why does astrology work? How do all these things piece together? It goes so deep into reality, and it tells truths that the conquerors don't want known. And they could even tell you when the end is going to come. If you go to the book of Revelation, it's when man is, they're sitting in the temple saying, I am God. Well, what's the biggest secret of the Vedantic point of view? God is in every one of us. Mm-hmm. Look, they are united. We can't have that. Let's disperse them. Let's scatter them. Well, that scattering could have been what happened there at Mohenjo-Daro and that whole culture, but it was more than just there. It was all over the entire globe as the attack came on and scattered humanity and sent humanity back into the Dark Age once again and slaughtered so many people upon this planet. And when we look to, again, the Garden of Eden, look, they've ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? Don't let them eat of the tree of life, and understand who they are, that they are source themselves, source itself, living a unique life as you and as me and as Sassy and Zeke and every bird in the tree. That takes power away from beings that just simply live off of power. And I just wanted to give you some quotes from the Upanishads, which when I've gone through the Upanishads, I viewed them as the very best of what you would find in the wisdom that you find in the Bible. Where you do find nuggets in some places, Proverbs maybe, or Psalms, and some others, the Gospel of John's beautiful. The Beatitudes can bring a tear to anybody's eye. The wisdom that's here in the Upanishads, when I first read them, all the way through was, to me, the very best of everything I have found in the Bible and more. And this is just a touch. The wise man beholds all beings in the self and the self in all beings. For that reason, he does not hate anyone. It's from the Isha Upanishad. Now, that's that understanding. If we all understood clearly, well, what does Namaste means? It means source that's in me recognizes that source is in you. So it's like I bow to you because I show respect to the source that's within you, because ultimately we are all one. When thoughts become silent, the soul finds peace in its own source. It only is by going in. If you're just going to take a book that somebody else is giving you, and again, when you're going through Vedanta, it's all meant to inspire you to go within, not to take anything as the be-all, end-all, and blindly obey or worship anything or anyone. Go within and discover your own truth. Mm-hmm. Buddha said that. Buddha said, don't believe me because I'm telling you. Don't believe your parents. Don't believe your teachers. Don't believe the policemen. Don't believe the politicians. You got to weigh it with your own heart and your own mind. And if it makes sense and is useful, use it. Accept it. If not, toss it. When the five senses and the mind are still, and the reasoning intellect rests in silence, then begins the highest path. And, in our Western world, it's almost impossible for most people to quiet their minds for 5 minutes. How many people, can spend hours in a spiritual pursuit, still meditation, just right by a stream or under a tree, just feeling nature around you, feeling it, sensing it, stilling all your thoughts. If we're in a conversation with someone and we're constantly talking as loud as we can, and we're not going to stop talking for a moment, you're never going to hear what the other person says. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just like a walkie-talkie. You press the button in and you say, whatever, Tango, Tango, Charlie, are you there? You let the button go and you wait. If you kept talking, but you never let the button go and waited, you would never hear anything. Mm-hmm. Even if there was somebody on the other side trying to get through to you.
And so this is how it works with the guides. You really have to find that stillness within to allow the information to come inside. And this is why it's so important to find that stillness. And I think a couple of ways to do it, like Mike said, sitting by a stream, looking at a candle. But this is how you get the information in from your higher self, from your guides, from source, call it what you will. But you have to have that quiet time so the information can come in.
And this makes total sense when we understand that the beings that are controlling this world, they don't want you having that quiet time. Mm-mm. No, they want you stressing over your taxes, over your rent, over your mortgage, over everything. Or when you've got your free time, well, you can't miss the game, or you got to watch this show, and we lose ourselves in that stuff too. And every now and then I'll say, I'll make the decision that I'm unplugging. So that's like what we kind of did this morning. Mm-hmm. We're like, and we do spend, 1 to 2 hours every day doing, spiritual pursuits, I would say, is pretty much what we do. But I would do even more because it's beautiful, and the connection is incredible when you start to connect to the higher densities. First thing we have to do is we have to have our chakras opening and functioning. That's the first thing. And so that actually takes some work. You have to be mindful practice. So over here from the Upanishads, watch your thoughts. They become words. Watch your words. They become actions. Watch your actions. They become habits. Watch your habits. They become character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. You are what your deep driving desire is. As your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. So we could create our own destiny just simply by words and starting there. And mantras are powerful, amazingly powerful, and they're ancient and they connect us straight to higher realms and beings that actually can help us. Do we need to go through the devas, or the beings that we would call the devas? You don't have to, but they are benevolent beings that have already done what we're doing. So they've achieved a higher vibrational frequency and are on a much higher plane of existence than we are right here, right now. You could go past them. You know, if your belief system is strong enough, your willpower, your desire, your work ethic, you know, you could. It's possible to achieve total release from basically that journey of the Atman, which we're going to get into what the Atman is, and you could achieve reunion with Source. Those wise ones that see that consciousness within them is the same consciousness within all beings attain peace. And this is understanding again that ultimately the greatest secret is all are one. In this amazingly diverse multiverse that we see ourselves in, just like each one of us being a single drop of rain in the ocean of Source.
And, you know, when it comes to that, you know, a single drop of rain, it's like, how do you know when one being stops and the other begins? Because all the energies sort of kind of merge in and of themselves. And depending on what kind of energies you have together, you know, that's going to say what kind of experience everyone is going to have. So, really important to try to be your best self, because you want to be that really healthy self, because wherever you're at, things are going to grow and they're going to flourish. You know, look at it that way.
As one acts and conducts himself, so does he become. The doer of good becomes good, the doer of evil becomes evil. One becomes virtuous by virtuous action, bad by bad action. It's, you know, simple karma, law, cause and effect, and also that, you know, what we put out there we attract. So it's a matter of knowing and trusting that if you're doing the right thing, if you're doing always for the greater good, trying truly to strive to help others, you're going to get help from other places. Mm-hmm. And the beings up above will, if you ask for their help, they'll help you. And, you know, whether we want to call that the angels, the archangels, the devas, the gods, whatever terminology we're using, ultimately every single being is what we would call an Atman, which is basically eternal soul, so to speak. And I think, again, you know, analogy we could use is, you know, just thinking that each Atman is just a single spark coming off of the fire of divine source. It would be easier to roll up the entire sky into a small cloth than it would be to obtain true happiness without knowing the self. We could chase everything worldly, which we can't take with us, and it's not going to bring happiness. How many rich people you know are miserable? You know, truly, often. And you see, you know, there's a lot of suicide amongst the very, very wealthy at the same time. And, you know, a billionaire might cry if he loses 50,000, which, you know, probably is something he makes in just a matter of seconds. You're never going to get happiness with things. And without knowing yourself, knowing who you really are, you won't find that happiness either. And the only way you could find out who you are is by going within.
So you definitely want to look at things in a sense where your experiences and your memories, what molds you, what helps you grow, what makes you the person that you are, all of these things you take with you. And that's something that a lot of people won't get in this lifetime. I think that's sad, but it is their life, you know, but it's something that should be treasured more than things. And I guess that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to show where the true treasure lies.
The multiplicity is only apparent. This is the doctrine of the Upanishads, and not of the Upanishads only. The mystical experience of the union with God Source regularly leads to this view unless strong prejudices stand in the West. That's Schrodinger. So he is, obviously known for his kitty cat. And again, we're talking quantum physics. A brilliant mind. And we just know from quantum physics that, again, reality conforms to the viewer. Because ultimately, the body is nothing but a vehicle. This is nothing but a vehicle. Look at that. That's the number of cells in the human body. Look at those zeros, guys. That's a lot of cells. And the Human Microbiome Project says that the human body has 100 trillion microscopic life forms living inside that. So you got 37 trillion cells and 100 trillion microscopic life forms living inside. You are a universe. Is it not written, ye are gods? Mm-hmm. As above, so below. As you see all these different species living in different locations inside your body, think about how important you are to them. Mm-hmm. And here we think in time scales, and we look and think, in billions of years, the sun will probably turn into a red giant, and we're going to be incinerated here. The death of just a single cell. Think about that. Think about the death. What happens when a person dies? You're talking hundreds of trillions of dollars, hundreds of trillions of lives. We are all one, because every single cell in the body is part of something greater. Only ego's beliefs and fears separate us. And that's something else that's discovered when we go in deeper, too. And there are many guides. The best guides for you to contact are going to be guides that only you're going to personally contact.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because your journey is so unique and so individual to you that when your guides do contact you for this information, it is going to be very specific to you. And you definitely want to be in a place where you can hear them. And it's also okay to have a very separate journey from everyone else. It's okay to be you.
It is. So, it's like when somebody will quote something biblically and then quote a whole bunch of other Bible quotes that, some people would look at and say, that doesn't make any sense. It's just, whatever. All these things. Other people might look at it and say, well, I could see how those two things come together, but I don't understand what you're talking about with these other, quotes. Why not have a unique, original idea for yourself?
Yep.
Make up your own mind, live your own journey. Stop, trying to conform. Again, this is a world of conformity. One size fits all. Simon says, mask on. Simon says, mask off. Mask on.
Policies and procedures.
Yeah, and conformity. Conform. They want you to conform. Okay, here I see, Mr. Smith. You're not Christian. You're not Jewish. You're not a Muslim. You're not an atheist. Okay, we're gonna have to go down a little bit farther. Okay, so you're not Shinto. You're not Hindu. You're not. What are you? How about I'm just me?
How about that? Yep, and that's totally okay. What I've done is I've taken information from all kinds of different places, and I've kind of created my own ism.
Think about it. Think about all the things they always are trying to get us to lock down who we are. And sometimes I have I find myself hesitating when it says, okay, are you white? Are you Hispanic? Are you white? Are you Native American? Because I could go, yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then I could go with a whole bunch of other things too, because my genetic report showed I was 3.7% West Saharan African. Mm-hmm. People would look at me and not think that I have that in me, but I do, So ultimately, we're all just us. And that's the point. That's actually the beauty of everything. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor can it be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. So yes, we live in a world manifest through the elements that we see around us. We're all very familiar with the four elements and the fifth one, the ether, the spirit. But, again, that's part of this manifest world. And we're so much more than that. That's from the Bhagavad Gita. And again, I remember when I read the Gita and I listened to Krishna, and the first time I did, I would have categorized myself as a Christian. This is going like 40 years ago. And I remember listening to Krishna's words, and I said in my heart, my God, that's Christ. Because I felt the love and the wisdom. That was the same thing I found in, say, reading the Beatitudes, and the beauty of the work of the Christ, Yeshua. And it hit me, my God, this is great stuff. It hits you right in your soul. The Atman. The Atman is the inner self, the soul that is reincarnated. The Atman is the part of God in every living being. The purpose of life is to unite Atman with Brahma, eventually, and not always. And I would say that just from the point of view that, sharing with Cindy, not everyone that believes in this migration of the soul from being the oneness with Brahman. And Brahman is not Brahma, so you take the N off and you have the creator God of the Trinity, Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Brahman is the absolute, the all source. That's how they would word it. But it is unknowable, Brahman, in and of itself, as we get from the Tao. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. So anytime you name something, you're talking about something that's finite and limited. And, Cindy is this person in this particular body, but Cindy's been known by many other names. Some Egyptian, some Native American, there's a wide variety. So
probably some alien too.
Oh yeah, most definitely, quite a bit of ET.
Yeah.
So again, this is this one unique incarnation sitting right next to me. But ultimately, the Atman is that part that is unique and is source itself. So when we look to the book of Revelation saying, when does the end come? Well, it's when man declares that he's God. When man realizes, oh, God with the big G is inside me. Well, that's when you're not a slave anymore, and that's when they're coming down to do whatever they're going to do again. But, there'll be different outcomes this time.
Right.
We're not going along with that. Forgetfulness of your real nature is the true death. Remembrance of its rebirth. That's the important part. So, again, death and birth are just doors. It's actually one door. It's just you're opening it one way and you're opening it the other way, in effect. And this is the smaller consciousness. This is where most people are aware of a very limited point of view of self, because the self is much bigger than what most people think in this world.
So I'm kind of feeling like if anyone is listening to this, and when we talk about death and rebirth, and if your life isn't going so well and you just really want things to just completely change, what you really want is you want to be kind of reborn again. You want everything to be different. You want a whole new world. And that's definitely attainable.
Yeah. So, if you want to see the kingdom of heaven, you must truly be born again. You must be born again out of this system. Mm-hmm. Because, this system will keep you down and out and away from it. It will encourage you to practices that are going to keep you separated from source, separated from knowing, the bigger reality that is out there. That is why they have burned the quote-unquote witches. That is why they've gone and tried to convert people everywhere. Mm-hmm. Convert or die under the sword. That's why people have been called heretics, boiled alive. It's part of this history of conformity to one mindset. And this is Aldous Huxley. The perennial philosophy is expressed most succinctly in the Sanskrit formula, Tat Tvam Asi, that art thou, which is the Atman, or the immanent eternal self. It's one with Brahman, the absolute principle of all existence. And to the last end of every human being is to discover the fact for himself, to find out who he really is. And I hope some of this will get some people thinking out of the box. You know, I know we've had tons of people that have said, thank you for liberating me from the shackles that were confining me.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been there too. And I've been in that place where I was too afraid to step out of the box because of, you know, the threats of burning in hell forever. You know, that's a real threat. And it's really frightening. And no one wants this to happen to their souls. So you might be teetering on that edge. You know, do I dare go out and look at something different? This book told me that I can't, or this is going to happen. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You won't regret it. Definitely get out there, learn about who you are.
Yes, so Atman is Brahman, and we are that. So source is within us. You know, the God with the big G is right here, right now, in you, me, and all of us. Having a unique experience from a unique point of view. And that's the purpose of everything.
Yep.
It's all about the ride, ultimately.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank you guys for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Check out Medicinal Food. There's a link at the top of every video. Please do subscribe to both channels and do share, and try to wake up as many as possible. Let's take the reins back from the dark ones of this planet and let us restore peace and love and security. Can you imagine that? Having a world with no monetary system controlling us, forcing you to go to work and waste your time when you could be a co-creative being with source inside you.
Right.
You know, it's a tragedy and a travesty, the system that we find ourselves in. And we've known better ways in the past, and we will again.
Yes, we will. It's attainable, you guys. We just really have to keep at it.
Source bless. Namaste.
Namaste.